Okay, so anyway, this is just a psychological kind of a trick, kind of not really a trick at all, to ninjas and psychological enthusiasts and principles of theory. Let's say this. Anyways, for right now, tie a ribbon around your finger, or bite down on a thought that you like from this thought, or from this speech, and just hold down or find something multiple to do. I'm gonna give a better example of this and what I'm trying to get you to do and what I'm trying to get you to understand, and even when I don't really give a shit, because in the end of it, the outcome of what my theory is for this, which isn't really a theory at all, this is almost evidence, and sometimes you don't want to scare reality, because remember, even if you are one consciousness and you are one comprehension or one understanding, in order to, let's say that you turn a microphone on and you suddenly hear almost two things. Don't listen to what I'm actually telling you or how I'm telling you. In reality, when you turn the microphone on, it's as if you have a witness to something. Now, even though it's not actually a witness, and even though that the alternative universe that you used a microphone or an electronical device at all, which I'm not trying to make you and me Amish, what I'm saying is that in the alternative universe where you had the microphone on and where you have the microphone off, two things were significantly different. Now, in recognizing that there's multiple universes looking at you, which in my entire life I've always been dealing with the fact that multiple universes have been looking at me, things that I was doing, or what I'm comprehending to be some acknowledgement of something that I have to bear witness to, for both universes to coexist in the alignment of one would be your dreams and the other one would be things that you simply wish or already have a full consolitude of what those fucking things are in a multi-universe. So in one universe there's a microphone, in one universe there isn't. Now, the difference between detecting objects, of course non-living things, or things that are in an abidement to all living things, because in my personal opinion, just a personal opinion, all things are living, consciousness, have a life, or are just living. So when you activate certain different things that have the stereotypical, not to start a pun, but a stereotypical pronouncement or a living embodiment to life, or have an acknowledgement of their own rules within that universe, they all seem to clap back with an acknowledgement to existence. So that means that as you exist and you turn on this microphone, or you turn on some object or start something, like how, now I'm going to say this because there are some people that are like, mutes or whatever, or people that are unconsciously quiet as fuck and don't even communicate or talk or whatever. Now, no one's really that bad, because if it was really that bad, those people usually have something deafening to life, as where they lose hearing and some form of senses, not vision, but hearing and the ability to speak. It just comes with the territory as being so ninja that even reality loses sight of you or the ability to detect you, which also can mean that you have learned how to go invisible or do other weird, irrational shit that doesn't belong to humanity or reality, and it really is technically kind of illegal, and I'd prefer that you didn't know this or found out from Hypnox, but these are also a part of things in reality. And the reason I'm covering these bases is that you have to know about how you know when things are watching you, when things aren't watching you. How do you know? How does it know that I know? And how does reality know that I know? And how do I detect these things? Now, when there is an electrical current on, now let's not get too deep. When there is something in an ordinance or in around you that is in activity, there is some kind of a very quiet current. Otherwise, if there is no current, it can't keep up with itself. It may not even know its awareness or its orientation, not sexuality. I mean just orientation, as in it's a forensical makeup or whatever the fuck on a reality's plane. So it doesn't understand that. So it's literal reflection back on time, space, and reality not matching up with you or your coherency in what you know to revel in as this reality or this universe. Now, the reason that this could be a problem, or why I'm even mentioning it, in order to help you resolve your problems, or to help you resolve the fact that the way you look at reality might be bewildering or irrationally loud. Like, because I am an irrationally loud person. Not on how I speak, but I just know that, like, I don't know. I don't know how I know this. I just know this. And it's just one of them factors where it's like, you know, being a big dude or being a certain magnitude of a person. I'm not special in any of those really weird ways that I would like to say this to make the speech sound better and more bold. But let's say that in the multi-universe, if I'm well known from living or just living, it's because there's a lot of things that have to do with, well, and then in fame, why my self-esteem is that, let's say there's like a group of quiet people, and the only thing you have to do to please them is be your loud, boisterous, rambunctious self, which is what I was. So that's how I came into existence in this multiverse, from what they proclaim me to be or not to be. Now, in the reflection of be or not to be, there becomes this silent resonance of my actual life and embodiment of existence, which becomes a fact of what I'm actually living, and things that aren't foretold or rumors or legend. And now, it might seem bigger than it really is, but when it comes down to it, what I'm really teaching you is that in the resonance sound, besides sound of what we know sound to be as, or these accumulations of clumps of time, space, and coherency, we get a whip back at the reflection of what we have left in the past and what we are making in the future and what we are in the revel in the present of all these things. And that is a signature to another universe. Now, of course, you poo-poo and you pee-pee and so on and so forth, which helps reality go around in a circle, but not that that's really that fucking important. I'm just going to say, for the lowest basis terms for what you should care about, besides that, oh my god, there's sunlight there. What the fuck? Yeah, besides that there's sunlight there, you should care about all these different things when it comes to the fact that people have left universes before, or that what is this really and what am I really caught up into. Love is complicated. So anyways, back to the fact that when you turn on an electrical current, or when you hear a slight tapping in the background, so let's say we put on a recording, preferably not a recording, but put on some kind of hamster wheel type of a mechanic thing that's set up to tap one every second. And then there's another tapping noise that's set up across the other side of the room that's set up to tap once every half a second. And both of them are just slightly tapping and going on into the background. Now you can turn one of them off and you turn the other one off or whatever the fuck, and that's the sound of humanity, or that's the sound of reality echoing back and forth, fanning between these two sounds, beating off of your fucking life back and fucking forth. Now that's on 1 second and 1/2 of a second. Now if you accumulate something on one of the other sounds and then one of the other sounds, it's resonance back and forth. And what that does is, like, let's say in theory, in your own mind, just you and me, or just you and your privacy, or whatever you know it to be, there is this extra resonance of it banging off back and forth over top of what your life is, what you're doing, and the needle in the room. And let's say that it falls into a stack of hay, or let's say it falls into all these things. In what you're really supposed to get from this third theory, not the original pin to dropping needle theory, not the second theory of dropping a needle, the third and last theory of, do you really exist? Now, of course we all really exist. Of course it exists. Of course I think, therefore I am, so on and so forth. But what it really does boil down to is, what was the whole point of that? Now, you couldn't hear the pin drop. I couldn't hear the pin drop. Everything in life has a significance in some kind of living matter to the fact. But even if it wasn't sound, and sound is just one of the very few elements that all go into play to make up a universe. So it's like, because some of the standard operators don't work inside of a pin, it truly does not exist in those moments. So to answer the question, if there was a sound out in the woods, what is the sound of one hand clapping? It really doesn't matter, because it's almost as if life is business itself. So as you were minding your own business, do you have enough to forensicate, or to add up enough socialized or monetizable, momentarily business in all of your senses to achieve a moment of comprehensive life? That's really what the point is. Now, I'm not saying, all kinds of alien life and a new spawning of life coming into existence because of a bunch of bullshit. I'm talking about that in theory, that if you can understand this like a business, there would be enough to sustain and understand what these five senses are, and what the sixth sense would be in your coherency to figure out what the future, past, or present would or should have been understood to have been. And that is the communication between you and an alternative or alien reality to what is our interscopic message, or inoscopic message to relay to each other, that the first step, or the new great leap in mankind to understand what the fuck was that last thing that we did when we relayed ourselves the message, to have full comprehensivency of the definition of full comprehension of what the fuck we were doing. That's all that it was. Now, like, that great leap in mankind would have been probably just that, from a technological standpoint, or if not from a technological standpoint, that is the power of your very deaf mute friend. He loves you, or she, in this case it's a she, but loves you and all of that extra bullshit, Tweety or whatever the fuck. But these are some things that I want to introduce to you as an understanding that we don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm the brute on the fucking team. So for me, I don't really care about how my little spectral thing teleports and punches people in the fucking face. I don't know. I don't fucking care. It was just like not a situation where it's like your wish is my command, but the fourth dimension is the fourth wall to, well, this just isn't about all of that kind of spoiled wishing dream shit. It's just not that important to me. It's nothing I never wished for. And it was just one of them things where like it just happens to be so because you just keep willing it and wishing it into the way that it was. Now, why I take the time to explain this to everyone else is that once the rules come into play with what physics is, reality, and the reality that we know it to be, it's not just that these are the laws of reality, these are the laws of jealousy. These aren't the laws of physics, these are the laws of jealousy. Now, of course, I'm not mad about anything. Of course, I have some of the best in the world. Of course, I've trained some of myself in the best in the world. Of course, the limits of reality are eppingly boundless and limitless as long as you understand the rules of the game. Now, it gets back to am I really referring to? Actually, nothing. I don't want anything from this. I don't want power. I don't want money. I don't want fortune. The only thing I want you to know is declarately is that if I was fixing my own wiring issue or my own fucking psychological problem or taking care of myself spiritual mind, body, and soul, which is really what all I want is to keep that clean and perfect as much as I can for a human being. Because otherwise, being caught cheating at anything, even with magic or otherwise, or the rules of life, or bending things to your will by accident, or purposely, projectively, or inimmersively to the will of your own decisiveness and your own discipline, bending your own will, or as you see fit, respecting your own condition. All those things come to a certain condition that what you cannot owe yourself is more discipline. Now, of course, you can't give yourself more discipline than the rules of reality, but I'm just trying to get you to understand my point of view, other people's point of view, what magic might even really be, and the other layers to reality to that, like, how is this science? How is this so dependable? So, back to the point. Now, as much as I have spiritual faith and a bunch of other, things host to the parallel to my real heart and life, mind, body, and soul, and all the things that I do follow, love, and really respect and discipline and humble myself to, it still gives way to the fact that there's things that they do like and there's things that they don't like. And sometimes I just want some solace and some tender fucking solitude to my motherfucking self, or independence towards some things. And it's kind of like, of course it's a give and a take, and of course for the better graciousness of it all, not at all. So like, I leave the wiring kit alone. I don't rewire things that are already perfect and completely disciplined, and anything else would be a lie or deception to myself, them, or otherwise. So I see that to be as fit as any other religion, and just try to respect myself. But every once in a while I still have to be like, well, none of us are that. And if they've attain such a level of discipline where they can hide amongst me in the shadow of doubt, which no one really understands what shadow of doubt means. Because, like, you ever go back and you get some medieval shit and you're just like, until the blood is red or some shit, or whatever, you just keep fucking torturing shit until the blood color is red, or until it's so medieval that, like, even the whitest color is even the blackest color is white, or something, or some kind of an off-brand gray that still looks white. Like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, it sounded really like glib there for a fucking second. second. Like, but you know what I'm saying? But like, let's just keep it real about some shit. Like, it's so far fucking evil and gone that you would have to treat yourself so morally indecisive into the opinion that the deception becomes reality itself, or that you know that reality itself is already kind of a lie to you, because these are laws that we have learned to abide by and allow in order for us to comprehend how far evil was tolerable in order to comprehend reality itself. So phonetically, even though that's kind of the wrong word to use, let's just say it's so much worse than detecting people's logistical language that I'd rather describe it that way in case you have to comprehend trying to deal with what I'm really kind of talking about. This is all to allude to the fact that I'm not really talking about my problem, what I'm really working on, or why I should label this something as something definitive or diminutive to the fact of something you should comprehend before ever trying to comprehend something unbound and limitless to what I pursue spiritually, to greater myself about something. And usually it's like, you know, it could have been a little bit of a thing. So let's say if you can hear 12 layers of reality. I'm not talking about hear as in hear, like as in listening. I'm talking about like you can comprehend or understand 12 different forms or unifications of reality all coexisting in one place, and you know that that's far too many for a human comprehension. Any other elite form of comprehension falls into alien, some other life form, or some other universe in entirety different. Now, how do I know this? Well, I know this for different reasons. I know this from alien knowledge. I don't know this from human knowledge. So I've never thought of it this way, but as we're embarking on that thought, I know that a lot of people have lost far more and gained a lot more in their exploration universally or parallelly to the universe. Sorry for how I sound right now. I'm just leaning on my side of my head and talking as if I'm bored. So I didn't mean to sound mono-ish for a second, because I know that you can start to think that somebody went deaf or mute or something. But I didn't want to scare us. I guess that's just life's way of being like, yes, that's possible, but it probably wants to just remember that like something like that is possible. Now, even when you exist on multiple planes and do multiple universal things, sometimes you get used to the fact that one side of you or a few facets of you asked you a weird, complicated question while you were talking, and the response to one of them was, you know, something monotoned and kind of talking in a monotone voice. To respond to it, they're like, no, we're just listening because we don't want to fucking go deaf or something. No, you have no fear. Don't worry about it. That's like highly unlikely. Just pay attention to what I'm telling myself, because this isn't even for anyone. This is really just for me. Anybody else who's claimed to understood me at some weird peak or whatever, and I knew they were fucking lying, but it was just kind of like, if they understood the levels that I go through to make sure that I am free of certain types of moral compasses and psychological mortalities to me and them, it's as if I have to unplug myself from other people's different universes or different areas in order to synapses myself into one whole being of myself. That's called privacy, really. But by the end of it, there is no such thing as privacy. You'll learn that moralistically, encompassing to your knowledge, your divinity, your ultimate understandings, reading books, you know, adding up your philosophical meaning, religion, all of these free beings, all of these things are almost anti privacy. And now, of course, it's still privacy, and of course, it's for all human sake, it's privacy. But you're talking about the fact that, like, bear witness to the fact that I had spoken. Well, of course, you hear yourself talking. You don't count yourself, and all those other things, you don't count yourself. Like I said, Tweety is a vehicle. You are a vehicle. You are a solid vehicle. You are by yourself. You are with your fucking self. It's not even really about privacy for me or anyone else, so don't get all deranged on me. What I'm really meaning is that it's one of them things where, like, of course, you witness yourself living, even in the first person, even somewhat in the third person. Now, even when your life likes to play little fucking games with you, like, you can see from the security camera how you're walking past in the mall because you look good that fucking day. You know what? Your life agrees with you. It's just one of the very possible things that all of us can do with either magic or the fact that we're all using or utilizing the fact that spirituality is life and that there are many attributes and things to use or utilize in life. We're just always aware of that. So back to my point before I lose sight of my real point, my ultimate point, why I'm even telling you this at all, how important it is, and why you probably, or why it's probably not really that fucking important to understand what my real personal point was. But anyways, back to the fucking point. It had something to do with privacy, but mostly it had something to do with, let's say, in life, or in reality, especially with, it's probably easier to just say religion, but not really religion. You have two competing scientific theories that both have arrived at a conclusion about the whole entire universe, and you need one of them unplugged, mono and stereo. You need one unplugged, and you need one plugged in order for you to go through a private or a sequential synapses with either one of those type of things. You would call that privacy anyway. So you would have to go about one universe and have something distinguishable enough, probably a different word, but distinguishable enough to say to that thing in order for the other universe to occur, and then to let both things run simultaneously within the universe that can comprehend overall parallelly that what they were supposed to incur as a fate overall in entirety universally. So that would still be called universally. So believe it or not, it's probably already occurred in some way or another, in a small way or another, but I don't want to have to distinguish that or dignify that for us to respond to or to totally unanimously understand that bullshit. And there's a lot of words that I'm trying to throw away right now because I'm thinking like, this is heavily not required of me, but it's just one of those things where, like, you should go through this kind of value system if you ever end up incurring this kind of weird spiritual debts or things that you have to go back and reorganize in your own mind in some way, because it helps you clean out your soul, it helps you keep things proper, and it helps you excel parts of your fucking mind in a real universe. I would call it a singular universe, but I just didn't want to because I wanted this to not be separate from your privacy in a way where you comprehend what I'm actually telling you. So anyways, or what you should get out of the benefit of me reviewing this from what I'm actually doing, because I don't think you're doing the same thing to me, and I don't think you should want to. Technically it's kind of dangerous, but also let's say that there's a ninja stalking you. Now this ninja, it has, let's say there's 6 senses or 5 senses or whatever the fuck. Now this ninja has like 9 senses or whatever. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because all those other senses, I don't know what the fuck they are, and I don't know, and I don't care. But when it comes down to it, getting rid of certain different senses, acute feelings towards how I judge the perception of these senses or the deception of them by what it is for that thing to exist around me without me knowing about it, or otherwise I usually don't care, because I'm like, hey, that's still privacy, why would I care? It's not ratting on me, I don't give a shit. But like, you know, every once in a while it's like, too many ninjas in this motherfucker, let me try to like give them bearing on some part of reality while I go do something else. Technically, this is closer to the fucking truth, but by the end of it, I don't know what it is. Like, we all have a heart and soul. I don't give a fuck. That's not really what I'm judging it about. But like, when it comes to overall, because it didn't say anything or do anything, and like virtually undetectable, which is fucking cool. But every once in a while I just need that bats and the belfry cleared the fuck out so that it can motherfucking go do its goddamn thing, and then not worry about what I'm doing or finding too interesting what I'm actually doing. But if I release it improperly, it will be going to coerce into a different place that's like so linked into me. Like, put it this way, if you have like a computer, and not literally, because this happens with computers but not exactly. So if you have a computer and you have a bunch of stuff on there that's correlated to you, instead of it just leaving, it finds a way to chill in some of your weird filing cabinets and folders and doesn't really leave from there. And then when you go back to doing all your business and your privacy, there's be nothing wrong with this. But the fact that it's a fucking ninja or whatever, it still would like go right back to activating right when you go back on your computer and you access one of these folders, and it's like a almost as good as a fucking room that it just like enters adjacent to your fucking household or whatever the fuck your spirituality is at that fucking time, right when you get back on your fucking computer. So like, it wouldn't even fucking matter. Now that's just an example, but in reality, in your own brain, in your own disfragment, in your own mind, body, and soul, getting rid of this clutter can help. Now, we're not just talking about fat spiritual ghosts that make you look chubby. We're talking about, this is just a joke, but we're talking about like different things that are like psychologically not a part of your equipment. Like, if you're afraid of heights, you can delete that. If you're afraid of your mortality in comparison to a car, you can delete that. Objectivity, you can delete that. Different types of manhood that aren't your type of manhood, you can delete that. Like, you know, different things like that. And I know right now that this seems like junk science and a bunch of weird out of this shit, and like, you're just one of these weird type of motherfuckers. But the reason I save these things as diaries and for my own personal etiquette is that to this, that, and the Egyptians that will be taking all of their other possessions into the next life, I don't know, and I don't care. By the end of it, it's just some extra stuff that I think the world should have some baggage about, or not know about at all, or it goes as naturally as it ever was and probably doesn't mean anything and could be like dealt without. But the reason I do this is that psychologically, forensically, philosophically, psychologically, all of these different barriers, and even with post-traumatic stress and all these different things, what makes us carry these burdens around, and what are all these little pieces of baggage, and how can I use these things or utilize them in a more proper way that doesn't seem like something that you can take or do take. Now, the reason I say that is because when you add up all this stuff, it's like, why the fuck would you have so many psychological issues, delusions, hallucinations, obstructions of your real true justice, and your corralled solace to your real life and your impending meanings on what life is, or your reflection on reality? Now, why I do this is because there's a realization, or there was a realization in my life where even for a brute, or even for a strong guy, or even for someone that was not really a sufferer of psychological issues or anything, I was forced to admit and to consciously recognize and understand that there are psychological issues that are bigger than us, life, or why it seems to have a physical stigma on you. Like why people can't get rid of panic attacks, why there can't be any answers to other things. Some of those things are actual physical ailments. Some of those things are like, well, you have some kind of a memory linked to when you had a panic attack. I don't have anything like that, luckily. I'm kind of mentally well. And I'm not saying that this will cure anyone, but I've learned that over years with some of the things that I've had to deal with, and I put this out there for other people that may have to do some things, because like it's not like you focus, like when you do these things as a childish wrong thing to do. It's like you had an imaginary friend. Your imaginary friend had all of your problems. Your imaginary friend was a similes to you, and by the end of it, when you deleted your imaginary friend, you lost all of those problems because you deleted all the problems that you had similar with your irrational imaginary friend. Now, I'm not saying that that's something I did or something that had happened to me, but I've learned or noticed over the years with all these different types of weird filing cabinet systems that I did have, or these weird ways of keeping memory or aligning things with reality, truth, fantasy, fiction, and all these other delusional or psychosis issues within life. All of these things were folded out of my life as two-dimensional as a memory to memorize something that is only two-dimensional, or in what unbeknownst to you is 3D. So, beyond that fucking factor, those psychological issues also disappeared. Now, I've never been one to have a lot of psychological issues. I'm actually psychologically healthy most of the time. But with all the things that I've encountered, I've never been one to... I've always been humble. I've never been one to not assume that with everything that I trip about, go through, drug about, have recreational fun about, that all of these repercussions and acts on life, addiction, curbing addiction, all these other different things, I realized a lot of it could just be put into a box and deleted. And for what I was taught about shamanism, and I hate bringing this up, but a lot of the things that we physically go through and ailments of life and reality, all of the things that your body and life suffers from in this reality, in your physical reality, all are instantaneous. So even when you start to realize, why does my fucking neck hurt, my ankle hurt, and you can't explain it because you didn't like fall, hurt your neck, and then eat some food. It almost everything that your body does within the amount of time that it takes your stomach to growl and then like eat some food and then heal, within like half an hour or so, or even instantaneously, most things are healed. Now, I learned that from somebody else that tried to teach me a bunch of stuff, but he taught me that basically all of life is goddamn near fiction. Yeah, but it almost is fiction, and I didn't want to hear that. I still to this day don't want to hear it. Still to this day, 9 times out of 10, when something happens and I see other people trying to tell me something, teach me something, or learn through me by having me be the dumb ape, which I don't even really care about because it's still a good reveal to have some memory on what the perception of reality is, or my perception of reality is, in some ways. Even though I hate that shit, because it's like, why don't you go be the stupid ape if you're the one that has to go and teach somebody else this shit or is learning this shit? But anyway, that's here nor there. It's always practiced a good humility. So I sit there and I'm kind of like, although this person likes teaching me that stuff, it's almost as if every time this person had to give me that lesson or pass that on to me, it was like 98%, 95% of everything that ever happens to a normal human being in normal settings is fucking fake unless you have an account for it happening. Now, you know how sometimes they sit there and you have all these different major ailments and they're provoked from things that you would normally know or not know. Now, it would be like since you can't feel each and every independent organ, but you can, and that's what meditation is for, so that you can feel your different organs and realize when you're digesting and doing stuff. Because a lot of us are like 30 or 40 and still don't really realize what a human body is, how to eat, how to digest, when our organs are working, what organs are doing what, why when we do certain stretches that different organs pull at each other, what these organs are for, what the other pineal gland is for, what these different like organs are for in growth and in shrinking, and why we eat some of these things and why we don't, the chemicals that are given off between different organs when they're supposed to be a cure to something or when they're supposed to realize to do something for each other, because it's still very much a very simple mathematical problem, and it's still as simple as like if you were in a field and your stomach was laying across that whole field, it would literally have to talk to each other like that plant makes that death smell when you're supposed to eat some other product. That other organ makes that death smell when you're supposed to eat another product. That other co-adjacent product needs to be repaired while it doesn't smell partially like death, but knows that it needs to be repaired by the next food thing so that it can get some nourishment to repair itself before this thing tries to put enough constraint on the whole human stomach that it may have to try to eat something before it fixes something else, and so on and so forth. All things are illegal in that manner. Now, even though they have the stomach has its own communicational organism or whatever the fuck, all of that can make sense to it, but to us it will never make sense, and sometimes it'll send the wrong relay message, and it will want to hear that same relay message forever until it doesn't or gets back the right chemical sound, let's say, or the right chemical coherency for it to respond to it, to know what to do to repair that body part, or to know that the kidneys aren't doing this or that. So usually when you have a problem, it'll be too big by that time to know. Or lastly, it's just as bad as how old school methodology for medical advice is that, wow, you won't really know until you have a big problem, or until the fact that like those demons that are trying to possess you have a bigger problem than you and are literally begging for relief from your own body and not even in the same fucking dimension or something like that. So things like that happen more often than not, and that's why they teach you in shaman school or in magic or mysticism school. Well, I'm a mysticist, so no. But by that account, let's review that. Mysticism is communication with a greater element or dimension beyond the comprehension of what we know from the catalyst, or the catalyst would be the mystic itself. Now, that's what mysticism is. Now, of course, I have a different, greater way of translate all those things, but behind all closed curtains and behind knowing hypnox and behind the greater meaning of things, I get back to this and I'm like, this is what we have here on the fucking table. You comprehend this, I'm telling you this is where we're at. This is where I'm at. Now, even when you know the magic of dimensions, mass, phrensiology, psychology, spirituality, metatranscendentalism, even with all these things being understood, let's say that they were fully understood to a metaphysical point that we are beyond the comprehension of reality and this universe and all that bullshit, it still gets down to the greater psychological point is, why does this science not exist? Why do we not exist to the science? And what is this, what are we trying to profiteer for each other? Actually, nothing. I'm not in this for any fucking kind of profit. I'm just in the discovery of like, God damn it, that ninja isn't that loud and I'm not disturbed by it, but I need to rewire myself real quick. And before I do, this is the greater embarkment of the frontier of the research that I'm left with in discovering what I'm about to rewire likes to do a lot of talking on the way out. Now, of course, it doesn't talk to me. It's just more of like, but this is the results of your research on us. And I'm like, well, I don't need my own research given to me on your way out. So it's just something that demonically possessed things like to tell you what they're worth on the way out. Now, of course, it's probably a ninja. Of course, I focus a lot on demonoidic type of fucking things. That's a personal practice and has nothing to do with some of my actual work. I just noticed that a lot of the things that get blamed are sinful things and demonic things. Now, I'm going to sign that off because, like, what that has to do within, as close as my favorite religions are to me in this country and in this nation, or disseminatable to what our overall continental system is, for international practices and varies. And some of this doesn't make sense, and hopefully one day it will make sense, but it's not like I think that I'm doing anything major. It's just that I like to note these psychological diaries and extra informations and anecdotal things, because one day it might matter to anyone that does review it. I'll make a note about, you remember that one old movie, I forget what the fuck his name is. I forget him. I love that actor though. He did that the Mysterious Island fucking movie or whatever the fuck, where they were all Animal Island people or whatever the fuck. I forget the name of that actor. He left a vocal diary as he passed. Now I add this in there and I keep a note of that, and I always make these reveals because one day it may count. It's not just delusional crazy shit, because when they get to a certain series of metatransalism or any weird things that have to do with meditating too much, put it this way, you'll start to discover from what hunger means, what lust means, what vision means, or blindingness means, or anything like that, or whatever the fuck. You'll discover from all these secret normal life things that your life begs and craves for, that some of these are the principles of laws being bent and broken to its will, or into a new submersive reality where you gain the perception to acutely understand more about yourself, reality, and what you really coexist with, or what you think you gain from your opportunities by bending your reality or your will into submission. So not always a responsibility. Now, if you were fat or if you were chubby at the time, and bending your hunger and your appetite and your thirst and all that bullshit is a part of something, but then once it's bent to your will, you're probably skinny, you probably don't have any real demands, you probably won't need that much more thirst or appetite. You've gotten to a point where you have a real sight of your real appetite and your real thirst. So that's what the goal of that is to bend yourself into your real thirst and your real appetite, not just being hungry for no fucking reason, or eating for two for no fucking reason when you're a man and you're not pregnant and there's no way you could be. So, the Boston creams, goddammit, they're so delicious. So, you bent your appetite into will, and you're no longer addicted to Boston creams or cocaine or whatever the fuck your problem is. Yes, that's all, and don't go too far. Now, why anyone would have to tell you that, I just want to tell you that because, things are crazy in the modern day world, where people would want to go lash out on themselves, or find themselves so deprived or so deceptive to themselves that they don't even realize that they're not inheriting any kind of discipline. You are just no longer addicted to Boston creams at the fucking donut store. That's all. That's all the goal was. That's all you bent into. There was no furthermore to bend in, and you kept bending too far until you suppressed your appetite into some demoralizing rate where you don't even realize that, you could die from this fucking type of thing, and like you don't need to starve yourself. Fasting isn't just for religious effects and what you have done to your own sin in jail. Like, some of that is morally ill because it's not there, and it's corrupt by nature because you have gone too far and have missed the point of your fasting or what you were doing. So some of that does apply to why I'm saying this, because it's like meta transferably, you are so hungry that you are calling up another being and eating their fucking fat. Now, you may or may not have been doing that. You may have been living in a full universal conception, but it still gets back to the alignment issue of like, well, yes and no. Now, even when this is just generally not true, and multiple universes don't belong to what life is, and no, the ninja or those type of people are not really actually tortured souls or whatever, so you can, nourish them, take care of them, help them out any way you want. Your invisible friend is not against you. It's not some weird bullshit like that. In fact, most people don't have one, so I wasn't one of those kids either, so just don't worry about it. I'm only mentioning it because it's one of the very, wholesome tricks that can lead you up into believing that, like, the world is or isn't against you, and the ninja or your invisible friend is not really against you. I just preferable to not having one, and also and more preferable to the fact that I just notice way too much about life, and sometimes I'm just like, I noticed that invisible guy, let me like go and reset my whole life, and that's a part of what these things are. So back to my real subconscious point. Now, what project that I was working on, or my artistic manifesto at the time, and I'm not talking about anything extreme. It wasn't like something extremely detailed. It was just something I was working on artistically at the fucking time. So, and they like to steal art from you or withhold your own projects or clear it out and then wait for you to get back to your project and shit. I don't know why. It just has this thing of watching you through a fishbowl or whatever, and just, being your quiet pet, but also being a part of your stimulus package and all that. And I don't know. Sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes it's normal. Sometimes it's just far too whack jobby for me to have to figure out and then go back to like, well, if that was too weird, how the hell are you not a part of the clear synapses of, while I'm cleaning my whole house, I don't clean my fishbowl? You know what I'm saying? For the fish to live clean too. So, sometimes I just kind of like, I'm going to put you on my headrest, or like wear you like a hat, then I'm going to clean up everything, let you watch, and then go back to fucking normal. Now, as I said, this isn't a privacy thing, but owning a gym or a seraphim and being a mystic is not fucking easy, even in a modern day world where it can get even more tricky, and why you see a lot of like old school or magic people hate on technology and modern day shit. It's like you're a fucking pest, and and we're not even talking about like, technology like YouTube or weird websites or anything like that. It's just like overall you start adding things up, and it's like, all right, I have a webcam in my house. I got 2 very expensive like platinum and gold microphones. Then I got like, a TV that has a Wi-Fi signal on it, 2 Bluetooth things, and then you start adding it up and you're like, what the fuck? I already have like 2 or 4 secret dimensions right there that can all resonate a bunch of different things that are in my life. So I arranged them all into one room, and I'm like, go ahead, live with your bullshit. And then it's like all those different technological things all living together in a way that's like, either you're going to resonate it by yourself, or you're already disturbed by your own encompassing theory on what life is, so you haven't generated anything. Now, of course, for imagination's sake and for Hypnox to look like a fake-ass motherfucker, of course, the red herring in the room is that, of course, we understand what technology is. All right, then. That's what I thought. But then it gets back to the overall meaning of all of this and what we were really doing. It's still one of those pesky things that you have to add up for a modern world, yourself and your spirituality. Let's just put all that stuff in either a separate fucking rooms and use them, or put them all in one room and see where the disturbance might be, or isolate the incident into one thing. Or, of course, you can always tell if there's one little team fucking with you or something, or playing on your thoughts of fear. So just ignore that, if anything, and then just don't rebel against your technology quite yet. I'm just saying that living in the theory of what I know about life and knowing that anything's fucking possible, sometimes things are just ultimately, yes, just fucking with you. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about, like, if something happened or something was pronounced through those things, it would probably be just something fucking with you and trying to tell you that it knows that there are some things in life that it can do to make things look magical again, or their real goal in the end is what they have found to do is to make things just look magical or to look otherworldly, like magic could still exist. Don't you believe in magic and shit? And stuff like that. So that's fine, and that's as close as it gets to, but after a while I just see them as a fucking creep, because if I have something to do at temple, if I have something to do at statue, if I have something to pray to, if I have something to believe, if I have something to light an incense to, all of that shit seems like a fucking creep to me. Like, you're not God, why are you here? You know what I mean? But, like, by the end of it, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not against magic, whatever. I don't care about ninjas. But after a while, if I notice too many fucking things, I'm not talking about, like, major big things. I'm talking about, like, little penile shit. Like, if I have two electronical devices on and I hear a third electronical device on, and you can barely tell because you're not supposed to be able to hear electricity. Of course, you don't hear electricity, but you do, and you don't. Now, if you've discovered something weird like that, or you realize that your extra senses are going off for no fucking reason, I find it easier to clean up my whole fucking house and redo everything. I'm not paranoid. I'm not one of those people that's like, God, what did you do? Like, how many things are you so paranoid of? Like, what the fuck? Like, how do you even notice that if you're not just paranoid about a bunch of shit? Some of that's true. Some of that's like, yeah, I agree with you. I would always agree with you about that, because I'm not really a paranoid person. I really don't have any of that in my whole thing. So I just look at it and I realize, yeah, probably. But, like, the people that are that fucking paranoid, yeah, you're right. They probably did do something wrong, or they're hella paranoid about shit sneaking up on them. That's not what my problem is. What my problem is artistic privacy. Or like, the better thoughts of my physics or secrets on life, or magical barriers towards things, or my metatransstantialism. All of those things are all things that are kind of guarded secrets, but it's not really that big of a deal, because it's like kind of like, well, here, sir, either you document this and you let them know Hypnox had fucking discovered this as a new realm and a new level to physics, and you publish it so that me and you will be famous and I'll split the money with you 50-50. Of course there's that. But then there's also that factor of, like, who the hell cares? I need to use this for other things anyways, and it was more important and more grown up to not take the renown or the rhetorical understanding of what those things were worth to me in a definition than how untamed it can be as the fruits of my actual labor. So use it enough and it's a part of your labor. Use it enough, it's a part of something that's worth more than reality itself, because it gives you the intuition to fortune what all these prospective real goals are for you in life, or leave it the fuck alone because of that exact factor, because you get so much more from it than it being labeled, than what it can be controlled or adhered to, or cost to occupy with a definitive answer. And those are all real perspective understandings. Now, why? That's the answer. But the non-why of the answer of, like, why the fuck wouldn't anyone want to just profit off of this or say their initial goal and get it to a real understood perspective? Is because it alters the very constructive material about what any of reality's functions are. Now, even when you do that and it's called electricity, and even when you do that it's called fire, and even when you do that it's called elemental force in life, like, no one cares. I already have 3 or 4 elements on my own that have nothing to do with fire or electricity and act nothing like them. So it's not really that fucking important. But even though I keep those things as a secret, even though I use them as I use that in the way as a secret, don't you want nothing more than at the end of the movie to release the fucking genie? God damn it! Right? You want to just release the fucking genie from that fucking movie. You got your wishes. You did what you were supposed to do. And hell, do I know why he's still here? Love him, love you, love them both, love all of them. But even when it's still kind of like, well, yeah, I know why he's here, because the other mission that we work on is so much more fucking important than my personal productivity, however the fuck you say that fucking word. So anyways, productivity. So to provoke. And by the end of it, it's so much more important than any of that I let it go to be at the aim that it really is. So that's one thing. That's also the second answer. And then the last answer is that for real intuitive understanding, or for real overall understanding, I don't really know why the fuck I should stand to benefit, or why the world would have to, or why we should understand it for the reason that is reflected to me by general, understand, I want to call it prominence, but a general pronouncement to all of us about how we understand this intellectually. But either way, this isn't a spiritual thing, this isn't a meta thing, this isn't even a spiritual magical thing, this is a psychological thing, where I wanted all of this to be synapsed or framed in a way that all of us can really understand and look back on and be like, oh, okay, so this is what we would all have been thinking under like our psychological health and duration to what this is. So then let's say, like, we'll go back to the example of, in this room there's one thing holding a click every second, and there's another thing holding a click at every half a second or every second and a half. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be intervaled in any weird way. Other than that, sometimes the interval of something or the frequency of something doesn't actually justify how powerful, how loud, how overall submersive or overall encompassing that something can be. So it may not even have to do with that amount of time or whatever. So all of that doesn't dictate its overall power. In most common senses and common ways it does, like the variation from how far an object is away or how near an object is away. All of that is general scope. But like some of the bigger things, I don't want you to get confused if you ever get stuck in some kind of a psychological puzzle that, like, you think like a werewolf, you think like someone that thinks for themselves like I do, right? So I want you to remember to unframe yourself from how weird I am about how I try to get us to think, because I want you to be open-minded enough to realize that there really is no rules on this shit. There's no rules on reality. There's no rules on all these things. Now, when you live in that world and you have a different way that you're used to communicating scientifically, objectively, or overall in an unorthodox way, or whatever, all of these different things have a way of communicating scientifically, that you realize that when you're with them, there's going to be ways that you're used to hearing things that you may not realize that the whole other universe doesn't even sound like anything except for a little bleep on the radar every once in a while. So you go 1 year, 1 second, 1 year, 2 years and a half or something, and then you hear a beep. And now, it may not seem that fucking important. Now, I'm not a master of multiple universe. I'm just trying to get you to frame and understand and comprehend some of these thoughts before I reveal something to you. Now, it's not a realization or anything immense like it usually is. It's some kind of realization, but it's also like as gravitationally pointed as any of that stuff would mean, it never means as much as it means to the person that's actually realizing it, or you may not even realize that you're getting some kind of fathom or some kind of a real fucking thought. But when you do get that kind of a real thought, you'll start to realize it seems so insignificant and so nothingless and whatnot, but it's actually fucking very important. But let me get myself out of the way real quick, because I'm sure you're probably curious as like, what the fuck brought this to this kind of conclusion? Why the fuck does this seem much more important, or is much more important than he can really make this seem, for as subtle as life likes to be anyway? So that's life quietly dampering it back to the fact that I would prefer it when we were ninjas and monks and shit, and you're like too loud about all of my fucking points. But yes, all of that is true when you're talking about Earth is a big, beautiful, bold place, or reality itself, and all of those things are, let's say a black hole isn't the world's physical structure backwards to what it would be like if the world was a two-dimensional mathematical puzzle. So that's not what's going on here, and that's not how you make a black hole. Because if it was, in fact, its number, it would be a negative number because it wouldn't be a physical construct. But the explanation of a physical construct would be much more costly than the physical state of its reality. So it has to explain itself when it never had to fucking explain itself. So then when you take that number and it suddenly seems like a black hole, that is the oblivion of what it was like to explain something that didn't exist in its own existence while existing, and still having to describe itself as a fucking existence, which is not to say anything had happened to Earth or our reality, but the reflection of it in two dimensions would have to encompass so much more information than what it was worth. And it was like a backwards question on asking, what is solidarity if not solid reality, when it seems like a infinite innocent creature was asking for a solid physical reality and did not know it was asking you for tribal birthrights, and basically was worth nothing but the directions there, and we actually gave it directions to us in 2D. So it did not know how to get to us. So it had to go and live a fucking kind of 2D life before it figured out how to get to a physical reality. Now, that and many other things could possibly be inside of a black hole. I don't know in theory. I'm telling you this psychologically because I wanted you to have enough for this journey, and also not to feel slighted or lied to or unbeknownst or undefined by anything that had to say any of this kind of weird thing. So, by the end of it, yes, I guess so. So let's get back to the real fucking dimensional point here. Now, you had those two clicks. You had one that was 1 second, one that was like a second and a half, or one that was like half a second, or whatever the fuck. Those two things are slapping off of simultaneously in reality. Now, as those two things are, and the notes that they came in on, which would be like 4 dimensions, because as it's hitting your reality and your reality, it gives way to the shape of what you are in your reality as you're comprehending it. Now, I think, therefore I am, of course there is nothing else. Of course it takes a lot more complexity to make a creature or a reality or a significant consciousness. This consciousness is wrapped up into a few different dimensions, and that also includes psychological pain. Even though that isn't a requirement, we're going to throw that in there because pain is one of those things that is as sublime as discovering happiness. You are only more happier the more that you discover pain, because you can only be more happier in your moments without pain. But it is also a dimension and a facet of life, but I'm going to throw that in there randomly just because it's one of those things where people will never understand why God keeps throwing pain in there. It's because it's a part of a dimension of understanding that life can only be so deep without. So you will always know eternal happiness, and then the other thing will always be that some sadness and some dwindling moments and times where you get Pizza Hut coupons or you get coupons on fucking junk food are just like a fucking extra added bonus to, like, I was already happy and now I get to have some fucking food. Now it's just like, you know, I had some fucking food. Before that, I was like, damn, I was desperately ill and needed some fucking food, and I got some really good fucking food. Really good food. So we threw some pain in there. Now, anyway, we we go back to the overall dramatic statement. And we get back to the deeper meaning of what all this is. Now, when you get all these different reverbs and clapbacks, you'll notice that, like, of course you know what all your electronics are doing. And I'm trying to put this in a really human term because I don't really need you to discover anything through me or have any problems because of me or suffer the fact that, like, I don't think it's really intelligence, but knowing a bunch of extra bullshit in life is really a lot of baggage, and it's like it can help you in some ways, but it's like a gift and a curse, because if you don't know how to utilize any of these things, it's more than likely going to be a fucking curse. It will be against you. It will probably just be a bunch of shit that's like, God damn it, what is a black hole anyway? Just go look at some physics and some NASA shit, and then anything that you basically can't understand, like, you know, black holes or WIMPs and shit. Doesn't it just seem like some kind of a taunting nemesis out there? That's what all this extra knowledge that I have and I don't share with you is. It's just like a taunting nemesis, and then if I reveal it to you, us, or them, it seems like something that would just plague us all, and then we have to, like, always look in the closet and be like, who is that? Why are you in my closet? Get out of my fucking closet. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a fucking nuisance or some fucking hemorrhage of some fucking sort. So anyways, I prefer not to give anybody a curse of mine or anything else. But I still want you to somewhat comprehend the better part of all of this and the comprehension of it. So back to my point. Now, even when I try to tell you this in a very clean, mechanical way, because everything else you have the laws of physics for, everything else you have at your whim for the different electronics that you need, Bluetooth, microphones, fucking all kinds of stuff. Now, these things ain't devil devices. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not sinful toys or any weird shit like that. It's just one of those things where, like, they're capable of a lot more than what we know, and they're not really breaking the laws of physics, but all of those things are technically kind of bending the laws of physics. But because of anything, like, just turn on 2 or 3 microphones and then practice turning one, then another one off, and then another one off, or turning off these multiple currents in your life and getting a feel for how many different currents are actually running in your life. Now, if you can live a busy life, you got a lot of stuff in your life, you got a refrigerator on, you hear the little fan buzzing in the background of the refrigerator, not currently, not on me, right, but in your life, and then you know what your car sounds like, you know what the radioactive frequency is in your car, you know all these different things. Just practice listening to these different electronical devices in your life, and you'll start to realize when one is on, one is off, well, all the other ones aren't, or these aren't on, and this and that. And you have all these light work or network synapses running throughout your fucking house, all having to do with these different electronics. Turn them off when you're not in using them. It's always good to turn off all your electronic devices for the reason that they say, but also for the psychological reason that I'm giving you. You can tell when they're on and off. Now, of course, you're not using them. Of course, nobody else is using them. Of course, you're just living by your fucking self. But after a while, you'll start to notice that if you take this out of context and you start to realize that even if they're ninjas, you can detect people's electronic frequency. Now, I'm not talking about their electronic frequency because it's not electronic exactly, but it kind of is electronic. Now, even when it's different from electronic frequency, there is something going on where you can just detect other human lives. Now, even when they're not alive, even when they're identical to them, or they're not identical at all, it's still a physical makeup of some, well, not physical, it is their overall makeup to what their psychological makeup is worth to their physical reality, and for some reason it's on you. That's their fate, their future, their spectrometrical understanding and analysis of how they perceive humanity to be, and your reflection with them in this overall plane of universal reality. Now, that is something I'm used to. That is something I grew up with. That is something we all have, like this sharing of, like, oh Lord, what if the aliens come out of nowhere? How would we all feel? We would all feel like, holy shit, like, time to let them have the meeting with the president and blah blah, and like, you know, this is what we do. It'd be like watching the Olympics or some shit, and like, you know, they're welcome to Earth, and this is what our favorite dinner is, and blah blah blah. All of that, no problem. But then there becomes this time in nature that if you are a complex, I'm going to say psychological, but, you know, secretly what we really mean is, let's say, all right, psychological, but really psyche type of a person. I forget the other word that I was looking for, the word that I was going to finesse. But anyways, psychological creature, you'll start to develop an understanding or a comprehension of, like, how many of these different things you have. Why do I have like 24 or 25 of them? This is more than my life, my family, the things that I care about, my dog's fate and future, the cat's fate and future, the things that the cat and the dog sees and wants to do and just doesn't bring it into fruition of reality. And, you know, most other complex creatures are, you know, semi-complex, or, you know, as they used to say, lower life forms. But, like, you know, less complex creatures don't really have that much. So even when you, like, are reviewing their fate and their life and their intuition and all those little things on the little cat or the dog, it's very simple. So you can read it very easily, and you know, okay, that's not what's in my way, or it will technically wouldn't be in the way, but it's like perceivable beyond your own notion of, like, Jesus Christ, that's a lot. If I'm paying attention to my life, why the fuck would I notice that? Usually you should never notice anything like that, or whatever. But if anything, and just so that you can complete that thought, we're getting Hypnox's little obnoxious, crazy, unorthodox thought out of the fucking way. So what that's really about is that if you notice anything like that, it feels somewhat like that, but just don't go into great detail with this. Keep it to your fucking self. Mind your own fucking business. Don't fucking focus on this shit too fucking much. Just go back to living your life and minding your own business. But really, just so that you get an understanding of it. It's like you have too many fucking things on in your house, and like too many electronics on in your fucking house, and there's just a lot of clutter and shit, and you feel like, man, I feel backed in by my own self and my own thoughts and whatnot. And even when you want to blame yourself, and it's better to do that because it's easier to clean up, but then you start to discover like other fortunes or gifts there. Now, let's say you're an advanced psychic or an advanced mystic or some shit, and you wished something good for somebody, or you prayed for somebody once and you wanted them to have good luck. Any of those innocent type of thoughts sometimes will provide you an extra frequency at some point, and you're sitting there and you're looking and you're reflecting on yourself and you're like, I don't feel like myself, but I wish that girl would get through this in a really dreamy, good, happy way. Now, even if she's your daughter, or even if she's the professional that you never were, or whatever the fuck, every once in a while life calls upon you to do some spiritually strong things. Now, even when you're just praying, you're taking care of yourself, you're doing all the right things you should have done, it usually doesn't require you to do anything. But sometimes wishing for somebody to get a coin at the koi pond or whatever the fuck, you start to realize that, like, life is literally thinking about you, thinking about this person, and wants you to think about that person a certain type of way to wish them good luck. And then all you have to do is take out this brief amount of time, maybe a month, I don't know. It usually doesn't take very long. Take a brief amount of time to pray for them, and that's how English, and that's how we as a nation or people understand those spiritual acquaintances to be, or those things to be. You just have a moment in life for them, you pray for them, you do some normal thing. Or if you're very advanced like me, there's times where you realize that they want you to be there to provide a physics moment for, like, if they're sitting there and they're at the carnival or something and they're aiming at the water spout and they're about to go and they're going to shoot the water in the mouth of the fucking thing, go flying past back and forth. You're helping them aim. Not that you can see that. You're just giving up a part of your physical talent and intuition on, like, if you're a very talented person like me and you're perfect at everything and you're good at everything and talented, donating a part of your devil's aptitude to what you signed off here on the waiver sign here. Thank you. Hypnox gives you a certain amount of talent to help you squirt the water within that thing, but now you have sold your soul to the devil. Now, if you're anything like this, or an advanced psychic or anything like that, in that small amount of moment, this girl wins her giant, fluffy, giant fucking prize Care Bear at the fucking circus or whatever, and then they put you away, and that's it. It was just that one small moment. Now, of course, you may or may not be aware of this. Isn't our reality. We're not aware of this. You're not aware of this. But giving off a piece of your good luck, best wishes, prayers, or anything like that, for an advanced psychic or anyone like that, it might define these things, or why you smell certain smells, or why you don't remember what your old master looked like, or why your last life is secret and hidden to you, or why you don't even remember how you got to this part of Earth, or why you don't even know why anyone would ever feel this way. All of this advanced bullshit ain't for you, and it ain't for me. It's fucking nothing but a nuisance, and it's annoying. But taking care of this boy or this girl, or whatever this intuition is, or where you've even gotten any of this from, or how do you even know what I'm talking about, sir? Or really none of this even means anything or makes any sense, and this is just a deafeningly loud, silent sound to myself. And when it gets back to the overall truth, these and all these things encompassing are defined as a psychological intuition. Now, we're bringing us back to reality, and we're getting back to a real coherent thought about something more important than what I was talking about psychically. And what this really means is that, does anyone else really understand why I left you this message? Now, let's get back to the greater point. You heard the clicking and the other clicking in the other fucking room, and then you started to realize that, like, even if you could detect any of those other things, what you need to do is go back to praying. You need to review the psychological synapses that you need to keep, which would be, well, one, your religious rules, how you feel about religion, and what is most important about you in your overall, what should we call that? You're just discipling to yourself. The other part would be your spiritual rules. how much you want to exercise today and for the next year. Just think about for today and for the next year. And then, your overall, way out of what you really think that you're going to want to do to exercise all those times to keep your mind, body, and your soul. Those are all things that you're supposed to keep for you, your next life, everything that's important, and all the real shit that you have to go do to take care and maintain yourself. The rest of that shit is baggage. My art bag, I love it. It's more important than my life sometimes. But really, in the end, sometimes I gotta toss my art just to save my own goddamn life from fucking, these fucking harassers or these people that just ride your fucking back for every fucking successful, ambitious achievement that you ever make. It's just crazy bullshit. And it's not just from success, it's from like, Jesus Christ, why do you want to discover me before I discover me? Is that baggage really worth it? No, you just throw it the fuck out. Who cares? It's just art. Partially why you even like Hypnox, go look at the porn. Go look at it. I don't know. I don't give a shit. Just go look at it. It's like by the end of it, you're bored. I'm bored. You see what this is. What are you so insecure about? I don't even have an insecurity about it. You thought I may have had some insecurity about it, but I don't. And you were wrong. So by the end of it, it's not even just that or my privacy or what you think we all have to take, earn, live, and give and get in this fucking life. None of that is on the fucking table. So you take your baggage for what it really is, what makes you a better you, what makes you a better person, what makes you a little bit faster as the slowest person in your fucking army. Because you are the slowest in your army. You're in a physical fucking reality. Everything else is your dreams, your fortuition, all these things that you can take to express a bigger embodiment of what you intend to capture erroneously or anonymously or encompassingly as your motherfucking self. And in all those levels, you have to be presently a stronger, better you. Work on that. So then that's what I work on too. So I'm not saying that as an insult or anything, but it's just one of those things that adds up to this great, giant, philosophical, complex problem, mathematically. So it just doesn't matter. But I guess the point in being and the real greater meaning of what I'm adding up for all of this is if you could see the other problem that wasn't electromagnetical in all of that problem, and you may have had that problem, that's how you rehash yourself, and that's how I rehash myself. It deletes some of those extra folders, files, maybe even the caseloads that you might be operating under. I say this because I don't think anyone is like me in the way that like they have to take the spiritual time and the embodiment to try to tell you, look, bruh, this is important. If you're this type of spiritual intellect, or if you're this type of metatransable intellect, if you're this type of spiritual intellect, if you're this type of physical intellect, if you're this type of sociological or psychological intellect or psychic intellect for all fucking things, if you are, this is my calling to call you to grace of duty to understand that all this shit matters, and I noted this shit for a reason. If you think you're the only one, you think that you're stuck with a bunch of bullshit, or that no one really comprehends what this shit is, this is something I'm putting down, rationalizing, hashing for us. I know that a lot of people are afraid to do this for being haunted psychically or dealing with irrational bullshit or magic or people bothering each other or whatever the fuck. I don't know, harassment, hedonism, hereticus. I don't fucking know. But by the end of it, even when I know all of that is like some demented, stupid, ugly fucking bullshit, it's still just one of these things. Well, the reason I took the lead on doing this is because, well, I think the sacrifice shouldn't be made for nothing. Number two, this should all be stuff that's well understood, and for human beings like me and you to somewhat rationalize, even though I'm always on the very edge of where it should be rational and shouldn't be rational. I try to drop off my psychological endowment and annuity to a place that is structurally sound and safe for an operational level outside of being a hooligan or whatever, or a graphic hallucination of the thug gratitude, thank you, of the ghetto mentality. But by the end of it, like, let's just say that, like, out of all that, I try to drop us off in better places than what I know for where before I take risks. So that's what a lot of these diaries are for, psychologically. And I think that I think that's the overall point. That's my point. That's my point, personal point. But also with all the other stuff, that if you ever figure out any of this stuff, never follow me, never do anything behind me, never do anything. This is the risk that I take. You don't know what risk that I am taking. And I don't want anyone else to have any losses, so that's what these diaries are for. And also I want them to know that, or I want people to know that, like, these things are for overall psychological consumption to make us better, stronger human beings. So when I take a risk on my own mortality psychologically, you know how they say that, like, it's not real, it's not supposed to hurt you and shit? Put it this way, Hypnoc's very, very past that point in life, and very young and old at the same time, been through a lot of weird psychological shit, and it's not all just, like, suffering, it's not all just bad things I've been through. But I'm a very well-endowed person with some things I just won't say. So part of me coming out of the closet and telling you that I'm leaving these diaries only for the fact that I think that if I ever go at some point, or as I become a timely motherfucker in age, I think that it's graceful for me to put this into some context for other human beings, so that if anything, somebody ever discovers what we're on the edge of, or what I'm on the edge of, they'll be able to give themselves something back from my efforts, my research, or whatever I have fallen into mortality for, or whatever. Immortality, mortality. Now, I know that's complex to understand, because it's kind of like I'm mortal versus mortality, and mortality is just the efficient rate of discovering what your life could literally be worth at the sacrifice of comprehensive of other things, versus I'm mortal, which is to say we've come back from mortality to realize that we can all be invincible to most things. Let's say 90% of the way, right? So by the end of it, you know, immortality may have a jurisdiction on how much it can actually do for you, but generally should be healthy. So the self-sacrifice shouldn't be employed for nothing. But if in case anything else, I always provide myself an appropriate, adequate diary to be able to return myself to a forensical or psychological due, right, and proper place. So, you know, whatever. So I think that was the overall last point and the overall point. I don't think there's anything else I need to say. But that's why. But if anybody else discovers anything in the kind of riddles that I leave you or anything like that, remember, if you're an advanced psychic or you're beyond what's worth saying to reality or us and me and you, remember that some of these things I make as basic notes to myself, us, and everyone else, that I'm very clearly going towards a risk in my own psychological behavior and my own devotion and stuff to equate myself into a different solid reality with the dues of what I had paid myself psychologically prior to that. So I make these diaries to get back to normal after my experiments with myself. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people, or, you know, I'm not even a psychic. Remember, I'm kind of an anti-psychic. So if you're psychic, don't pester me, don't bother me, don't fuck with me. I don't have anything to do with you. I'm kind of an anti-psychic, and I'm pretty much a purveyor of privacy. So I prefer privacy over everything else. So it's just kind of like, you know, my war with psychics has only dissolved me to being a more mature and rational person, as I always was. So even in those stupid, pesky childish fucking wars. I've only come up with mature answers for things, so that's what I give back to for all the other stupid wars that I've had to go through with psychic people or other types of entities or psychological balances, let's say, within life to attain a higher and better self and with other people. So I don't know if this makes sense to you or anyone else, but the reason I'm happy to oblige this is because for right now, and I'll say this, the higher authorities. Second, you'd be surprised how much they do and don't know, those same people that have to review your cases and other people's cases. Secondly, religious effects, religious pillars in communities, religious people, those community people, right? Those people. I'm saying that for them, us, and the other people that, as far as me being a juvenile thug and hooligan or whatever the fuck, I don't know. I don't really fucking care. That's my personal private business. But when it comes back to on the surface of things, every time I find something spiritually deep, strong, and aesthetic, I put it up there for them and let the rest of them take it home. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need a religion, you need a faith, you need some discipline, you need some organization, you need all these different things. I take you to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm kind of a miscreant, whatever, this and that, whatever the fuck. But then when I drop you off something spiritual, it's supposed to be alright. So why I'm telling you all this stuff is so that hopefully it reaches the right other people who may know what to do with a stronger device. Because it's like weird, because it's like as many things that fall out of time and space, and it's like, what is that, a tractor trailer hitch? What is that? Blah blah. The things that I find spiritual, I'm like, man, this would be really good for a spiritual cop or something. I'm not one. So unfortunately, I'm like, goddamn, they're a hooligan. So I just gotta give them what I gotta give them, and then that goes to some other better hands and shit. Or like, discovering a sonic weapon, and then just being like, holy shit, let's just give that to the fucking monk. You know what I'm saying? Give that to the priest and shit, and whatever or whatnot. Or maybe the other guy solves the case, and I don't fucking know why. There's so much integral stress on that building where the crime occurred or whatever the fuck. Now, I'm not saying I'm guilty of any. I'm saying that this is all discoveries along my other ways in life, and I get so many weird little fucking hashed off journeys or little stories given to me while I'm walking around spiritually that I just can't believe that this fucking needs to be solved or figured out by some fucking crazy thrifty little like sonic psychic or some shit. But I would feel weird if it had to be in somebody else's hands, and better me than some little fucking like, fucking sicko or something. I don't fucking know. But in the midst of getting rid of sickos that are addicted to hair and like, why are you staring at my feet, sir? And like, creeps and shit. Like, I gotta drop these things off in better hands, and I gotta throw away some other worse trash. So by the end of it, I guess all I'm really saying. So anyways, if you ever noticed anything like too much layers in life, I've only noticed like a little bit over 12. I have 4 elements on my own. I don't know if this means anything to anybody. And I know sometimes it's like, man, you sound like a whack job sometimes. But sometimes I'll teach you, but you have to find certain things where you can actually align with any of the wisdom I'm saying. So I just leave this as notes to myself mostly. I don't expect any fucking responses or anything, but I hope it does serve somebody. And I hope it helps somebody stronger and better than me. But sometimes I'm just like, damn, it's so weird to be on the frontier of your own fucking weird ass work. But I don't know, whatever. I'm used to being not understood. So I don't know, whatever. Back to nerd work.